If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything that you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on any listening platform like Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. It's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. From Battlefield Studio Alpha, welcome to the Wartime Leadership Podcast, where we explore what spiritual resiliency looks like from different perspectives. We often focus on the physical, emotional, and social areas of resiliency, but too often we neglect the spiritual pillar. Now, this looks different for everyone. We will be exploring what spiritual resilience looks like in the lives of our guests, who are people from all different walks of life. I'm your host, Nathan Coy, and today's guest is Victoria Rader. Victoria, ma'am, how are you doing tonight?
I am being spiritually resilient, my friend.
Well, what a coincidence that's what we're going to talk about.
I'm sorry, that was too tempting. I'm grateful to be here. I'm really grateful to be here.
Well, you know, we've already had a good conversation moving forward, and just kind of talking, and I was like, oh crud, I forgot to hit record. Let's start this again. So now here we are again. But before we get going too far, we're gonna do 5 easy warm-up questions. All right?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Now, I said easy.
But we can't guarantee that that's how I'm gonna come undone here.
Well, it is a random question app generator. So, every which way of fun. Let's see. Has a book ever changed your life?
Every book. Some of them not so positively.
I mean, that is a very valid point. Not so
Do
positively.
you know a great tip here. About 3 or 4 years ago, I gave myself a permission not to finish every book. I defined freedom of, if it's really bad, put it away. Put it away. So there you go.
So how far into a book have you gotten when you were like, oh yeah, no?
I don't remember, but I think I forced myself into about a third of a book where I finally said there is just no hope for this one. I don't remember what the book was, but isn't that interesting that the negative experience has defined my life towards freedom so positively?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you almost look at the book and you go, listen, this is definitely much better as a movie. And you're like, well, this is nonfiction. You're like, yeah, exactly. Much better than a movie. All right. What is your most used emoji?
The thank you or the prayer sign. Some see it as prayer, some see it as thank you. For me, it's one and the same.
Oh, that's wow. I like that. You know, I actually saw a debate on Discord about the difference between the two. And I was like, there is no difference between the two. Do you have any pet peeves?
Pet peeves. I have a lot of pets. I have 4 of them. Pet peeves. To be 100% open, vulnerable, and honest, and unfortunately, that's the only way I am. 20 years of changing subconscious programs. Pet peeves are triggers. I find it. I love myself. I heal it. I remove it. At the moment, I am not aware of them. The second I am going to shift it. If I were to really seek one out as an example, how about I give you the most recent one I've removed from myself that was very present for me? And that was my husband's socks all over the house. And that was a pet peeve. And so what I found when I searched my soul, why was I so triggered? what I found it was the tendency of possessiveness. Somehow, in my delusional mind, I felt it was him polluting my ground. So I had to learn what it is like to honor his presence and to make space for him in my life. Incredible miracle has happened. The socks are gone and I'm actually missing them. So pet peeves are gorgeous gifts for healing in my world.
Well, let's make sure that your husband doesn't hear that you're missing his dirty socks on the ground. Let's
not manifest it. Not manifest it.
I expect that to be one listener that will not be listening. Okay, do you believe in ghosts?
I believe in God and I have seen ghosts. How about that?
I think that is a fair assessment. We will give that one to you. Are you the type of person who considers dates to be job interviews?
I am so unqualified to answer that question. Married for 27 years to a guy I met when I was 18. No dates prior to that. completely unqualified to answer. So, with zero expertise, based only on opinion, man, I hope not. I sure hope not.
Yes. You know what? I have agreed with every single thing that you have said thus far, except for the socks on the ground. I'm a socks on the ground kind of guy. But hey, Victoria, thank you so much for that warm welcome, for really getting that energy sparked up. Just turn it up just a little bit more. Now let's focus on you. I'd like to know about your background, where you came from, how you got into writing. Also, like that's a major thing, especially with 6 books now. Wow, who has the time for that? And with the coaching and everything that you've been doing leading up to this point, just give us your background, bring us up to date.
Well, speaking of wartime leadership, I come from a country at war. I was born in former Soviet Union in Ukraine, and I grew up there. I'm very grateful for having been born to a country with zero freedom, because I had a luxury to understand that what freedom meant to me, which was nobody touches what's inside of me. And as I live and thrive through what's inside of me, the outside world starts reflecting it with time. I will die saying that. If there's one undeniable truth I have, that is, you don't go out and create peace by force. You live through peace with such a phenomenal determination and, yes, spiritual resilience, that it becomes a spreadable, a way of being. And so, as I mentioned, I married kind of early and always have been very big on adventure. And so I thought it was, once I immigrated to the United States, I thought it was a great idea to homeschool my kids and teach them about the world and the history while traveling. So they were very young, 4 and 8. I took my mom and my 2 young kids and we went to Greece. We came home from Greece after 3 weeks. My husband lovingly sat me down and he said, "Sweetheart, I don't know how it's done in Ukraine, but here, no money is attached to the little plastic card you've been swiping. See, and I'm worried about his stocks. How sick is that? Here is the debt."
Wow. Hey, you know what? I'll trade your socks for my debt.
Right? Okay.
Deal.
So the story goes pretty, actually almost hysterical looking back, but through a lot of sobbing through the process. I literally went and Googled what is the fastest way to make money while staying home with your kids. And the great all-knowing Google told me it was to sell real estate. It was 2007. The market was hot. Homes were flying off like cupcakes. I went in. I got my license by 2008-9, the worst recession in the U.S. market history. Yep. And to make a very long story short, through having the right coaches, the right disciplines, and spiritual resilience, I became a top 1% of agents in the US during recession while homeschooling my kids, not working on Sunday, and traveling the world. So people started asking me, "What is it that you do?" So I started doing a lot of practical coaching and then learned that you can only discipline your conscious mind to the limit that the subconscious sets. So then when I got a PhD in metaphysical sciences, got energy modalities, and learned how to shift the subconscious so it doesn't sabotage your significant path. And 2013 founded my company, You to Shine, where we have team of coaches, products, and services that help you shift the unseen blocks and give you very simple, practical steps to move forward wherever you are on your journey. That's in a nutshell all that I do and all who I am.
Well, that is not a very easy path to take, especially what year did you come to the United States from the Ukraine?
1995.
Okay. Wow. So we're going to get a little bit into that. I would like to have your unique perspective and take on what's happening in the
Yeah.
world. But from stay-at-home mom who's teaching, that had to have been a very not a very easy thing to do. I mean, nowadays it seems a little bit more of a homeschool is normal for a lot of children, but back then it really wasn't normal. There wasn't a whole lot of it going on. It was looked at a little bit differently. How was that being a leader within the home doing that?
Well, let me tell you, my friend, I'm not very big on normal, so
Maybe that's why we're getting along so well.
maybe
I
it
don't
just
know.
might be. I mean, normal is a repeated behavior that has no thought behind it. And all I do is, come on, just because it's the norm, that's because it's normal. It does not have to be your norm. Let's just grow out. And so, um, to be transparent, there was a spiritual guidance for me that told me, was guiding me and told me, stay home with your kids and teach them. My absolutely brilliant kids had what would have been qualified as one of them as a learning disability almost, and she didn't know she had it until after a master's degree and going to Oxford. She's in her second year of PhD. And I said, by the way, now that you're studying it, that's
Oh.
what you had. Thanks heaven we don't believe in labels. But even so there was a guidance and there was maybe a justification. But the truth is, and that is the truth, it was actually easier for me because I was not a morning person. And the thought of getting up in the morning to put my kids on the school bus was harder than the thought of teaching them at home. That is being as honest as I can be. So, um, I'm going to take all the accolades where they're due, but the one of choosing the harder path is not. Um, and if, for any parent who's listening, I know they'll agree with me. I just don't believe that any one of us have the ability to derail a divine path of a human being. No matter how much we struggle as a parent, a
Mm.
person will bounce back to who they've come to be. So I personally believe we don't have kids to shape and form them. We have kids to shape and form ourselves. And so that homeschooling was more of a learning for me than it probably was for my kids.
Wow. So now from that daily interaction with your children into a top real estate agent in the nation, define your leadership philosophy, your pathway to leadership that you have utilized, and how it kind of transitioned between the different roles of your life, from stay-at-home mom, parent, to real estate agent, and now coaching.
So, John Maxwell, at some point when he was first founding, I'm one of the John Maxwell's founding partners for his leadership team. And John Maxwell's definition of leadership still remains to be my favorite. He said, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing else. I believe that to be the very basic and the most profound understanding of what leadership is to me. And in my life, I can tell you how I have formulated and defined what leadership is. I believe in guided leadership, as I've mentioned, and I'm going to give us 3 very practical steps applicable immediately, especially since we're early on in the year. So, however you define your process of connecting to either it's divine guidance or knowing or intuition or God, whatever your language is, you want to set a theme for the year. You can actually ask yourself, what is my theme for the year? You can get an answer, whether it's a word or a sentence. Then you go to the next step. And it's very important to ask the question in this specific language. Why? Because our subconscious will deliver the answer that we ask it. If I'm asking what's wrong with him, I'm going to get an answer. If I'm asking why do I love him so much, I'm going to get an answer. So ask the right questions. So the second question for that is, every month, around the first of the month, I would say, I've done this for 2 decades, what is my theme for this month that supports my theme for the year? And then every day, without a fail, I would ask this specific question first thing in the morning. And this is gold, and this is gold that's going to release a lot of overwhelm for so many of us. I stand by it. This is why I've accomplished everything I have, is this one question. And the question is, what is one decision I am to make, or one action I am to take today to support my theme of the month? You're going to get that answer immediately. You implement it. And as you do, you tell yourself that you have fulfilled your role for the day. Why? Because you supported your year and your month with this one decision or action. And then everything else on that overflowing tray of to-dos is an extra. It's a bonus. So you start your day feeling that you've won it. Nobody can take it away from you. And as you do it day after day after day after day, you look back at the most miraculous months and the most miraculous year, and you're creating a life lived by intention.
Well, I'm speechless. So that's I mean, that's a phenomenal answer. And as somebody who is a member of the Maxwell leadership team myself, which is awesome, I absolutely love how John Maxwell has kind of taken that definition of leadership and has broken it down into the simplest of terms in so many different ways, not just in each of the different laws that have been generated from that thinking and that trail of thought, but just in the everyday action, like you're placing it in. It's really interesting that you say that you should pick a theme for the year. I have never thought about breaking it down to the month and then supporting it each and every single day. I've always thought that I'm supposed to live up to this goal. So actually mine for 2023 is James 1:26. I actually picked a verse, a biblical verse, in order to carry this through. And it's simple. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue, but deceives his heart, this person's religion is worthless. And I just see it as keeping my mouth shut in a lot of the cases, right? So absolutely, I'm going to start doing this now. I'm going to start making a theme for every single month from that theme as being an annual. Thank you for that. That you're absolutely 100% in that is pure gold. You have kind of hit on this a little bit, and you've used the word spiritual resilience to kind of talk about a few of those things. But I want, if you don't mind, to take a moment and define spiritual resilience for us in your way.
In my way. And I will tell you where this way comes from. I believe spiritual resilience is ability of complete surrender to love. And I believe the more resistant we are to surrender to love, the less resilient we are. You know, the word surrender, being a Ukrainian, we don't surrender well. There is no cell in my body.
No, you do not.
No cell in my body. Through generations, right? Through generations. The conflict today is not a new conflict. 1933, Stalin says, Ukrainians too entrepreneurial, let's starve 9 million. Okay, so, I mean, it's not a new thing. So, I'm also a spiritual person who studied the concept of surrendering to divine will. And that word, speaking of pet peeve, that word was such a trigger to me that I said, by golly, I'm going to learn what that means. And so I remember I'm sitting in my special place, you know, my temple, and I'm feeling the spirit, literally this influence that says, I'm praying, I'm meditating, I'm asking, I want to know what surrender is. If it's such a powerful concept, I don't get it. I don't get it. Do you want me to surrender my freedom? Never. Do you want me to surrender my peace? Never. What are you talking about? And so I'm sitting there on the bench, and I have this feeling, very clear prompting. Lift up your feet. I'm lifting up my feet. It's like, and then I feel this, you're now surrendering your weight to the bench. You're allowing the bench to carry your weight. When you completely surrender to divine love, you allow for the source, for God, to carry you. And it will carry you through moments of life that no physical force will. That, to me, is capacity of maximum spiritual resilience. Being so humble in your ability to surrender to the power of the divine to carry you, however you define the divine. That when you are not running, you're walking. When you're not walking, when you're crawling. And when you're not crawling, you still need to be moving forward. You're being carried forward. So to me, the greatest empowerment lies in the complete surrender to that kind of love. I define love as life-originating vibrant emotion. If you are adding to life, you're loving. If you're subtracting from it, you're not. So that, you got Victoria Rader's definition of spiritual resilience.
Oh no, that was that. Can you say that one more time? Love.
Yes,
The
I
acronym.
define love as life originating vibrant emotion. And by the way, the word emotion comes from Latin emovere, which is energy disturbed. So emotion is energy in motion. There is energy that is flowing to us, through us at all times. You don't have to be you don't have to be an energy healer to walk into one room and feel uplifted and walk into the other room to feel drained, simply because you're feeling what is happening in the room. And so that's what I see love to be.
Okay, so in utilizing that, how do you build spiritual resiliency within yourself?
I notice what I notice. If you go to my site, I have this quote that I've said so many thousands of times that I put it there. Notice what you notice, because what you notice is what you create. So I notice one of the three internal conversations and I shift to the next available one. What do I mean by that? If I feel a pattern in my mind, something is happening to me. That is a place of powerlessness. This is unfair. How could they do it? This is, why would Russia attack Ukraine? How unfair is that? It's happening to me. It's happening to my people. Powerless. There's no resilience in powerlessness. When that happens, then I say, I'm going to shift that. How is what's happening to me happening for me? Okay, now I am claiming a little bit of power into my life. The problem, if I'm claiming my power, I've noticed that sometimes greed is awakening, you keep claiming. So I want to shift it to the third level. Guess what? What is happening is not happening to me. And by the way, how is it happening for me? The spirit of the Ukrainian people is reborn in such a unique and purging, purifying way. Yes, there is bloodshed. Yes, there's destruction, but there is a rebirth of a nation happening, lest we forget or ignore. So, yes, it is happening to my land. Yes, it is happening for my land. But now the resilient question comes in. How do I make what is happening to me and for me happen through me? Because happen if I let life happen through me, I am empowered, I am resilient. So for me, it meant I'm going to launch a line of clothing that all the profits will go to restore the homes for those kids. So the list of things that comes through. So the war no longer happens to me only or for me only. The peace is happening through me. The peace is happening through me. So that is my internal process. Lovingly notice when I'm being powerless, because all of us have moments of, how could it happen to me? Great. Notice it. Then say, because it's happening to me, how's it happening for me? And then don't stay there. And how can I make the desired outcome happen through me? That's to me the process from powerlessness and resistance to resilience to empowerment.
Wow. So you actually started a clothing line.
Free me.
Oh,
Free me.
touche.
Touche. Coincidence.
Oh, I
Coincidence.
like
I
it.
haven't worn it in about a month. I walked my dogs. I looked at my watch. I'm like, I don't have time to change. Pretty is not as important as powerful. I'm showing up in my little sweats. So there you go. Turns out it was meant to be.
Hey, it absolutely 100% cannot. You know what? I actually had to change my light color to yellow. I know this isn't being recorded for video, but I had to change my color to yellow because of all the gold that's being dropped in this interview.
Oh.
Plus, it was either that or baby blue because, the two colors of the
Oh.
Ukraine that are absolutely amazing. So I think you're right. I think we're seeing a level of resilience that we haven't seen. And you're right. This war is definitely not a new one. It's not one. It's basically just relived over and over. But 100% that there is a resurgence of the identity of the Ukrainian people and what your people have lived through for generations upon generations. And now they're able to write their own story in
Chills.
this way.
I have chills.
Yeah. Oh, it's just
And
amazing.
what's happening to the world too, because you cannot not know about it. You're redefining who you are. So speaking of what is happening for the world, we're all redefining who we are. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to see, I mean, the everyday stories that are coming out of this because of these people. So how about this? Let's go down this rabbit hole. We're already there. We're gonna jump in head first. We're going there. How are the people of the Ukraine living spiritually resilient right now? I know resilient in general. I think that we can come up with a lot of different things that are there, but specifically spiritually resilient.
I think that one of the greatest qualities that is getting people through is the sense of humor. My grandma, both my grandma's dead right now, but my grandma married my grandpa. He was her second husband. Her first husband died in the Finnish War, and so she married my grandpa. They had 5 kids. After the war, my grandpa became World War II so disillusioned in the regime he fought for that he became an alcoholic. And so she was bringing up 5 kids by herself, working 3 jobs. She would go from one place she would go from no car. She would walk from one job to the other, sometimes so malnourished that she would pass out, stay there on the ground, and then would come to, get up, and continue walking. And as a little kid, I spent every summer with my grandma, and she would say, "Honey, life will often give you 2 choices, to cry or to laugh. Always choose to laugh." I'm emotional talking about it. And it is phenomenal for me to see that tends to be that national quality, because the amount of humor, the memes, the sayings, And the funny thing to me was I was watching a little bit of a coverage on one of the leadership positions in Russia, and the phrase was, it's got memed all over Ukraine. It said, "These people are crazy. We can't make them be afraid. They just keep laughing." Like, that is just it, because when you laugh, you can't be afraid. And so looking back at her, you have 2 choices, cry or laugh. I understand that when you're going to laugh adversity in its face, that restores your zeal for life. And so I think that is, you cannot help yourself but see all these memes, war related memes, that are thriving through the nation right now.
Well, you look at the war machine of Russia, right?
Mm.
It's known as a war machine, but yet here we are watching them just, lose that oomph. And it's right. I mean, the people are laughing in their face because of what, on the ground. I mean, President Zelensky, former comedian,
Oh, there you go. There you go. 2
gets
points.
elected. So I mean,
Touche.
there it is right there, right? Like he knows what it is to laugh. And if you listen to some of his press conferences, if you see him inside the presidential palace, he has an essence about him of resilience, because he's kind of just letting it go. He doesn't take it as full front. The best thing I had seen is when he came to the United States and he went before Congress, and he was wearing the exact same thing as he wears in the presidential palace, those fatigues and stuff. I mean, I think that was a pure laugh in the face.
I'm with you, my friend. I don't think it was it was very intentional. I think
Oh
he's an
yeah.
incredibly intentional human being. I think that, that is something. I think he's God sent to Ukraine right now. Honestly, it's miraculous to watch. So yeah.
And just to see his humor come out in some of those senses, but then you see the clips. Of course, we can't understand necessarily everything that he's saying, but you can see, his comedic background coming out. But then you see him talk about his people.
Mm-hmm.
And the passion that comes out and the seriousness of his face, how everything just kind of draws down, because you know that this man cares so much about the people.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant to watch. So in taking that Ukrainian feel, and I love what your grandma said, by the way. I love that idea. Even as a military training instructor, a drill sergeant, I would make my trainees laugh or smile once a day. Now that was it, once a day, and then we're right back at it. But I would crack a joke once a day just to see them smile.
It's interesting that you say it, because when we laugh, our brain slows down to theta brainwave. Our brain has different brainwaves that it functions in. We sleep in delta, which I think is so funny that they call it delta force. I never thought of it. That's funny. Ha ha ha. Okay, never mind. Okay, so but our brain sleeps in delta. Maybe it's because they kill you in your sleep. Okay, we need to stop me. We need to redirect me. But then
I
theta,
think that's a good point, Sheila.
you know, but theta brainwave is when it's that semi-awake, when you're coming out, and in hypnosis or in reprogramming and conditioning, that's the brainwave that is most impactful. So if you study, so this is all coming through us, for us, I think. When you study great leaders, you will notice that they will make a joke and then they will deliver a point of significance. And the reason it is done, whether it is intuitively or programmed, only they know. When the brain smiles, when the face smiles, the brain slows down to theta brainwave. That is the most impactful brainwave there is. So whatever is said after that joke gets imprinted, gets programmed into the brain. So it's a gorgeous, gorgeous leadership tip, right? Find a way to teach what you teach through humor first, and then through impact and significance.
So then in going down that stream with your family and maybe your team, because you've gone from being the stay-at-home mom to being the
Mhm.
real estate agent to now coaching, how has your spiritual resiliency, or how do you impart and build spiritual resiliency within each of those elements, your family and your coworkers or that client?
They're one and the same in my life. The principles are one and the same. The application, the strategies might be different, but the principles are the same. And the principle is always people before tasks, and leadership before management. And so,
I think it's very, because I explain it as leadership is people, management are the processes.
there you go, one and the same. And so and the interesting thing comes in when you identify when you have to focus on the task, because fulfilling that task impacts people in a deeper way than maybe addressing someone's need at the moment. And that's where that balance comes in, all the time. But continually asking myself, you know, is this a person or a task? Is this a person or a task? Has been very, very helpful for me, both in family and in my business. My team is growing. I have now 13 incredible members on my team, and each one of them has their lane, has their coaching lane. And so balancing the team time versus one-on-one time, and understanding that not every coach needs the same time to be fair. I think it's very
Mm-hmm.
important to understand that the fair is meeting the need to the maximum of your capacity and the person's need versus equaling it out with the same amount of effort or time. I think that's very important for us as leaders to understand the need, to know your capacity to meet it, and not try to leverage and make it the same. A lot of parents tell me, I don't understand. I treated my kids the same and they turned out so differently. I'm like, I understand. You treated them the same. They aren't different. I mean, why would you treat them the same? So yeah.
So in you they're different people. Go figure. Even though they came from the same place, they are different people.
Yeah.
Figure that one out. But when it comes to that balancing between the coaches and between the members of your team, the 13 folks, there is definitely a time when it's very important to sit down and go, okay, I can tell this person needs me right now. They need me to be X, so I'm going to be this. And being that adaptable leader, do you find that as an easy adaptation for you to make?
I think I want to redefine that, and it is much more, what does the vision for the team needs from both of us, and how do we meet and create a bridge to that vision together, versus how do I meet your need. So I want to be very clear, having misspoken, it's not my job as a leader to meet everyone's need. It's my job as leader to identify it and to equip them to meet the need in the process of creating a mutual vision and to train. And so, I had a luxury of having Bob Proctor as my coach for a while. And he gave me one teaching that took a very long time to take for me. He said, go where you're wanted, not just where you're needed. Because I'm a kind of a person that's like, hi, dead fish. Let me breathe life into you and put you in competitive swimming. You got this, baby. Come on. Give me a little bit of a
You do it every
tailbone.
day.
Yeah,
You do
yeah,
it every day. Come on.
you know. And so all of a sudden to be like, wait a minute, go where you're wanted, not only needed, is a huge thing for any coach and for any leader. You don't want to lead those that are being dragged. Are you a dragger or are you a leader? You can only lead those who want to follow. If they're not following you, that's okay. Let them go at their pace. You keep going. And that's a tricky line for a lot of us to understand and to live.
Oh, absolutely. I've had to adapt my leadership style quite often, being active duty and seeing
Mm,
different types of people coming through, and now having been in the military for 17 years, that the generational difference is huge. Now a lot of these, I say kids because a lot of them, when I came in, were just being born, and that's a crazy thought for me. But I've had to adapt my leadership style for them because of that. So I actually have pulled myself out of the race and gone further away from the team, so I can see the entire spectrum of them. I can see the rabbits, the people who are running super quick and fast, and I can also keep an eye on those turtles, those ones that are a little bit slower at it, stuff like that, because I know that middle ground where people are, that's going to be that place where the organization will fail or succeed. And so I've always used the thought of, if somebody uh, falls down and skins their knees, that's perfectly fine. Let them
mm,
skin their knees. Skinning their knees is learning. Those are
amazing.
lessons.
You
But if
know,
they fall on their face and bust their face, that's failure. Bad.
I love that. It's so interesting to me, the analogy you chose, because my very first book was called actually Until You Win. 8 Secrets to Winning the Race of Life, or Why the Tortoise Always Wins.
Perfect.
And when I wrote the book, I said, now I'm a hare, okay? I'm a hare. So how about if you're not either a tortoise or a hare? Like if you're a different animal, can you win the race of life? And so the whole book was know who you are, and then you know where you're going, and then you know how to get there, and then you do the darnest best, and you don't quit. And there were these very basic principles. But I think what you said is huge because you as a leader were learning who they were so that you could know how to help them get where they were going. Like it's brilliant, you know? And of course you use that analogy, so it made me happy.
Well, and it's absolutely perfect because it is a wonderful transition into your books because you now have 6. At the time of booking this, you had 5.
Yes.
But somehow you got in that 6th one just right in the nick of time. I guess it was because you were coming on the show. Why don't you pick your favorite book that you've written thus far? And they can't all be there. I'm sorry.
The favorite book that I wrote that grew me the most was the book Until You Shine. That is the book that will never be reader's favorite. That book was written for me, by me. That's the favorite. And it's because it has very, very advanced. It was my PhD in metaphysics that I turned into a book. So that is my personal favorite. My personal favorite for what it has done for my clients and people I never met is the Prosper Me book. Prosper Me, the 35 Universal Laws to Make Money Work for You. And that book sounds like about money, but prosperity for me goes way beyond financial stability, but not bypassing financial stability. I don't love it when spiritual gurus hide behind scarcity or lack. I don't appreciate it. Just as I don't appreciate greediness, you know. So for me, prosperity is a fulfilled life of purpose without starvation, but through thriving. And so the book is very much that. It gives you spiritual principles. You want to talk about the book of spiritual resilience? 35 spiritual resilience principles. They're called universal laws because you can apply them universally to any area of your life and thrive. But then the book applies them with very practical steps to money principles. Because, you know, we were not taught it. I was not taught it in school in the Soviet Union. Kids are not taught it in school. Or even, I mean, we're not taught how to work with a very basic principle of life, which is money. You know, right after air, I think, trying to remember, Zig Ziglar said, money is not important in and of itself, but it's second in importance only to oxygen. You've got to have some, you know? So there you go.
And as Zig Ziglar would say, and that's the rest of the story. So we're going to, I'm actually going to take the time and I'm going to put links to each of the books in the description below so that people can get a good idea of what those look like. Now, you said that you just finished number 6 yesterday. So what's the title?
So the book it's not that I finished it yesterday, it's a compilation book. I have 4 solo books and 2 collaboration books. Yesterday we launched the collaboration book that's called Wickedly Smart Women, Trusting Intuition, Taking Action, and Transforming Worlds. And it is written by 17 world changer women that were guided into taking action. We're all very passionate about this book because 100% of proceeds go to Life is Good Foundation to help kids play again. To help kids play again. It is proven that having one functional adult in a kid's life, does not have to be a parent, changes them palpably. So that book was launched yesterday. It's called Wickedly Smart Women. And you know, it talks about intuition. And speaking of spiritual resilience, I teach on mindset as a set of 6 mental faculties. And those 6 are imagination, intuition, perception, reason, memory, and will. And when you have them balanced, and they are harmonized, you understand what they are and you work with them, you create a very powerful life. And if they're continually clashing, then you live in continuous chaos. And so intuition is one of those powerful mental faculties that we don't talk about enough about. But I think all of us have that gut feeling or God feeling, however you describe it. We just choose to ignore it way too often, but all of us have it.
Oh, yes, right there. We choose to ignore it, which is that choice that we make, and every choice has consequences, good or bad. It's your choice. Now, you said that you had a few apps, and one specifically. So the audience that we have is not necessarily military or just first responder, but you said that there's one that you think specifically would be good for the community for spiritual resilience. What was that app?
That app is called Empower Me. And you got to put a dash in. We got lots of copycats. So it's Empower Me. And the app is one of my most passionate projects as I continually add content to it, but we keep the price at a whooping $19.99 a year. It's $20 a year. So we're growing the value and it's our biggest outreach. And the whole purpose for the app is building on your connection to the light that you are. And there, there's so much research now that meditation is great, but when you don't know what it is, how to start, and there's so many voices about it. Well, through a lot of research and work with clients, we found that 3 minutes is plenty. And so there are 3-minute mini meditations that are guided for each area of your life. So if you're tired, there is a mini med that's called from drained to powered up. 3 minutes. You do the meditation, we get amazing feedback on it. But the reason I've mentioned it for the spiritual resilience is there are two sets in the app. One is called My Freedom and one is called My Grief. They're very different purposes. I believe the planet is grieving right now. And what I know to be true is that the anger that we see is built on grief that has not been healed. A lot of grief that has not been processed or healed turns into anger because you're angry at being unable to handle the burden you carry. And without help, without guidance, you're expressing it as anger. And on the other side, you are expressing it as depression and apathy. So if you're experiencing bouts of anger or periods of apathy, it is most likely that your grief is so deeply stored and hidden and unprocessed that it's become the controlling power in your life. So I found 99 aspects of grief that we're unaware of. And that little app has an aspect of grief. It's a 30-second of your time. You kind of shake the phone and the intuitive aspect of grief comes up. Then it has a definition. It has a visualization for releasing it. You know what? Do you mind if we take 45 seconds? I'm going to ask what the audience needs from that app for the grief. That's what I feel the most. Let's do it. You'll see how easy it is. Let's see what we need. So what's coming up for us is when you feel pain all over. I feel pain all over. Visualize. And if you're somebody who's listening and feeling pain, and we mean obviously not just physical, but physical also, visualize with your eyes closed. Imagine as if you're surrounded by blue, cooling energy. Imagine pain leaving your body, your heart, and your energy, and dissolving into this blue colored energy. Feel the cooling sensation all over. And then affirm with your hand on your heart, I am releasing my pain. I'm now healing. I'm now hopeful. I am me. Pretty cool. Somebody who was in chronic pain got a little relief, and for that I'm infinitely grateful. So it's very quick, 45 seconds. You're private. Nobody peeks on you. You can tell I'm very passionate about it. I think it's one of the greatest gifts that, we've been inspired to create.
Well, and I think that grief is different for everyone, and as they transition through, it's just like the Proverbs or whatever book that you would specifically want to look at. But when you read it, when you understand what you're going through, it's going to look different to each individual person. And that is very unique, because the fact that you can apply it, you hear it, you speak it, you say it, it touches all of the learning abilities, people who must touch and do versus see and hear. So yes, your passion is evident. I wish everyone could see what the passion looks like. It's just oozing, and thank goodness it's in a sweatshirt that you just designed that goes 100% of the proceeds go to children.
And rehabilitating. Oh, I can't talk about it because I get the pictures of the guys rehabilitating the wounded warriors. Yeah, I get their pics, and yeah.
Well, I would like to also get the information for that so we can push it up, because even on the American side, in taking care of the wounded warrior the Wounded Warrior program, or any of those individuals that are constantly going through rehabilitation, but now with a war in a different location that is just as affecting us as Americans in such a way that we can actually witness and see the atrocities that are happening. It is the least that we can do to be able to come side by side, our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. We've seen it more and more throughout the time, how small of a world it has become because of the internet and different means of communication. So I am very grateful for you, Victoria, for having that sense of humility and allowing yourself to feel the conversation just as much as participate. Do you have any final words that you'd like to leave us with?
I have so many final words. Let me tune in and to see. I share this story often when I'm guided. I'm going to share that beautiful little story that gets me out of bed every day. The story starts in 1400s. 1400s, there is a sculptor in Italy. His name is Donatello, and Donatello is commissioned to carve a sculpture. He gets a huge chunk of marble. He studies it for months, and he says it's faulty. It's got veins through it. It's a no-go. So he rejects the marble. He rejects the marble 50 years later, 50, right? Never sure about my accent. So 50 years later, another great sculptor whose name is Michelangelo, out of that marble carves arguably one of the greatest Western sculptures of the world, which is David. And David still stands in Florence in open elements, not in the museum. 500 plus year old sculpture. And so when Michelangelo's contemporaries ask him, how could you carve this incredible sculpture out of this faulty marble? He says, I saw the angel in the marble and I carved until I set him free. I think that's emotional. I think that's spiritual resilience. Keep chipping at the marble. Remember who you are as a child of God, as a divine spirit. The rest of it is just marble.
There is no faulty person, just an element of release in order to get to them. Victoria, thank you so much for investing into us and taking the time to sit down and speak. And I have learned so much more on my journey that I'm very, very proud to be able to say, and humble enough to say, that I learned so much from you. Today's episode is only possible thanks to my friend and producer, G. Frazier with 369sounddesign.com. He is the one with the hardest job of us all, because he gets to make me sound good and soon look good. Be looking forward to our videos as they will begin to drop later in the year. We are blessed by the entire team here at the Wartime Leadership Podcast. See you next time. Be blessed.